Part 31. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 301. The emperor found that no one in charge came out to greet him when he stepped into the gate of the princess's mansion. He was a little uncomfortable when he saw the guards and servants kneeling inside and outside the gate. Wherever the emperor went, he was surrounded by people and prostrate himself. When had he ever been so neglected? But today was a special situation. His Majesty did not take it to heart. He only asked the guard leader Lu Jun to lead the way and walked all the way to the main hall of the East Upper Pavilion. However, as soon as he passed through the open hall, he saw Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao who had been waiting for him after hearing his voice. The emperor was stunned for a moment, and then smiled and said, "Sir Xie, this is Xian Yuanyao." 3 words, like thunder in the ears. It turns out to be General Xian Yuan. The emperor's face instantly showed surprise. "I have heard of your name for a long time, but I have never had the opportunity to meet you. Today I finally have the honor to meet the general. It is really a great honor for my humble home." Is it so exaggerated? If he was so excited to see him, how would he react when he saw his master and his majesty later? Xian Yuanyao muttered to himself, but humbly clasped his fists and saluted, "Greetings, His Majesty the Emperor of Ziki." "No, no," the emperor hurriedly declined, "the general is really majestic and elegant, with the demeanor of a general. I have admired him for many years. Today, I finally got what I wanted and I am very relieved to see him." Xian Yuanyao turned his head and glanced at Xiejin, his eyes clearly asking, "Is he really so happy to see me?" Xiejin smiled lightly, "The regent and the queen are here too, Your Majesty. Why don't you go sit in the hall first?" The emperor quickly extended his hand, "General Xian Yuan, please, Lord Xie, please. Your Majesty, please first." After a few polite exchanges, they soon went to the main hall together. Xian Yuanyao's eyes fell on the face of His Majesty the Emperor, and he thought to himself that the Emperor of Ziki seemed to be a good person. First, he was not arrogant and ignorant of the times, and second, he did not have pedantic and paranoid ideas. He could directly give up several useless sons and insisted on making his daughter the heir despite all objections. It must be said that this courage was extremely rare. It's just that Ziki has suffered a lot in recent years. The biggest problem of the emperor is bad luck. He ascended the throne early when he was young, and the power fell into someone else's hands. Later, he seized power in a disorderly manner in the past few years, which depleted the treasury and dragged down the national strength and military strength. Even if the emperor wanted to govern the country well, he couldn't cook without rice. I'm afraid that his inability to do so accounted for a large part. Approaching the East Upper Pavilion, the emperor thought that the distinguished guests from Dongling would certainly not come out to greet him. The guards, maids, and maids were still welcoming the emperor outside the hall. However, as soon as he stepped into the courtyard, the emperor was greeted by a dignified and indifferent face. He had the honor of seeing it once many years ago. Now, after many years, this face seems to have not changed much. It is still awe-inspiring and awe-inspiring. The emperor was really stunned and stopped in his tracks. Next to Rongyu was the abdicated empress. After many years, she was still beautiful and gentle as a fairy from a painting. Probably no one would have expected that they would meet each other here after several years. "Your Majesty, Regent," the emperor came back to his senses, and a more humble and enthusiastic smile appeared on his face. "I am really happy today, and I am lucky to meet you too." "Your Majesty is too polite." Nan 11 smiled, "We are also very happy." The emperor thought she was being polite and didn't take it seriously. Rongyu's voice was light, but he could hear a rare gentleness. "I am really happy." The emperor was surprised. Really happy? The queen was gentle, and saying she was happy could be considered polite, but Rongyu was a person who never knew what politeness was. He actually followed suit and said very happy. Was it because of Qing Huang? The emperor was puzzled. These two were the most powerful rulers in the history of Dongling. When they were in power, no one dared to provoke them. They created a prosperous and glorious era in just a few years. However, they abdicated at a young age and went to enjoy the mountains and rivers. They also raised two particularly outstanding sons. The most important point is that Rong Yu never disdained to be polite to others, so the emperor felt flattered at this time. However, he soon stopped laughing. Introduce her to His Majesty. Rong Yu reached out and touched Qing Huang's head, and said calmly, "This is my daughter." The emperor's expression paused, and his eyes followed his movements and turned to look at Qing Huang, who looked calm. His daughter? Please tell me clearly, whose daughter is this? No wonder she was so polite, it turned out that she was trying to snatch his daughter. The emperor calmed down and found his voice, the regent doesn't know, Qing Huang is my daughter. Even if he wants to recognize his daughter, he must first get the consent of him and Qing Huang. How can he announce the result right away? Your Majesty, are you against Qing Huang being my daughter? The emperor shook his head subconsciously, that's not the case, it's just. Then it's settled. Rong Yu announced the result calmly, Qing Huang is my daughter from now on. The emperor. Sure enough, they came to snatch his daughter from him. Xiejian, Xianyuan Yao, Rongzhan, Chu Qing Huang, who stood quietly by the side, all remained silent, and for a moment they only felt that his master, father, was a bit bullying the weak. The poor emperor, oh, someone snatched my sweet little cotton jacket, what should I do? Waiting online, very urgent. $window. Taboola equals window. Taboola. Taboola.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, Taboola below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 302. Nan 11 smiled and said, let's go sit down in the hall and talk. The emperor breathed a sigh of relief and nodded quickly, so the group quickly entered the hall. Even though he had abdicated for so many years, Rong Yu still put Nan 11 first in everything. The emperor of Ziki naturally did not dare to be arrogant in front of these two distinguished guests, and humbly gave up the seat of honor. But this time, Nan 11 took the initiative to sit in the second seat, giving the two main seats to Rong Yu and the emperor. I will sit with Qing Huang. The emperor looked at the two seats of the upper seat, and then looked at Nan 11 and Qing Huang, who had already sat down on the left. The corners of his mouth moved, but he said nothing. After Rong Yu sat down, he sat down without saying a word. His eyes subconsciously turned around Qing Huang's face. He was really puzzled in his heart. Qing Huang had never been close to her biological mother, concubine Duan, so why was she so easy to get close to the abdicated empress of Dongling? And she looked very well behaved and obedient. The emperor began to feel sour in his heart, always feeling that his precious daughter was really taken away. The mood is inevitably a bit complicated. On the one hand, he is happy that his daughter is liked by Rong Yu and Nan 11. After all, with the protection of these two heavyweight masters, Dongling, Qing Huang can not only sit on the throne more firmly, but also 11 Qi can be protected by the allies. In the future, there will be no worries about foreign enemies, and the development of the family and the army will naturally be smoother. On the other hand, it is naturally jealousy from his father. His Majesty's side. Reason is one thing, and emotion is another. Qing Huang is really a heroine. She is as brave as a man. She is only 15 years old and has the courage that is not inferior to men. It's really amazing, Nan 11 said gently, the emperor has such an amazing daughter, which makes people envy. The emperor came back to his senses, and a smile appeared on his face instantly. He nodded repeatedly, "Yes, I am also proud of it. Qing Huang is my intimate little cotton-padded jacket. I am really happy to have such a daughter. I am really happy." Rongzhan coughed lightly, picked up the teacup and drank tea silently. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao didn't say anything either. When they spoke, it was inevitable that they would have the meaning of bullying others with their numbers. Although even if they didn't speak, the emperor looked quiet. "We came to Ziki this time to recognize a daughter. We will not interfere in the government of Ziki, nor will we influence Qing Huang in any way. Nan 11 has always been considerate, especially since the other party is nice to her daughter, so her attitude is naturally good. Qing Huang will still be the emperor's daughter in the future. Ronjiao and I will not stay here for too long. Please rest assured, Your Majesty." The emperor felt a little guilty when he heard this. Okay, he judged the gentleman's belly with his own mean heart. Others just recognized a daughter out of empathy. Why did he think that they came to snatch his daughter from him? King Huang's surname is Chu, and she will always be the eldest princess of the royal family of Ziki. It is impossible for Ronjiao and Nan 11 to change this fact just because they are recognized as a daughter. Except for having two more powerful elders, everything else is no different. The emperor smiled, "It is King Huang's honor to be favored by you two, and I am happy for her. We are blessed." Nan 11 smiled, "Qing Huang is already an independent girl, we are just shamelessly asking for a status. As long as no one in Ziki bullies her, Ronjiao and I will not interfere in anything in Ziki, please rest assured. Of course, if someone insists on making things difficult for her, then the hundreds of thousands of cavalry in Dongling will not be vegetarians." The emperor nodded, "It's okay to interfere occasionally. You two are wise monarchs. It will be of great help to Qing Huang to govern the world in the future. He is a sensible person. How could such a sensible emperor give birth to several useless sons?" Xian Yuanyao was very puzzled, and then thought with peace of mind, maybe this is what God meant, otherwise how could Her Royal Highness the Princess have such a natural opportunity to become the first Empress of Ziki? After a few greetings, the Emperor suggested, "You two are new here, and Qing Huang has not prepared much. Why don't you follow me into the palace? I will have someone prepare a grand palace banquet to welcome you." Nan 11 looked at Qing Huang and turned around and said, "Wrong you, go. I will stay here to accompany my daughter." She said this so naturally, without any unfamiliarity of just recognizing a daughter. The emperor couldn't help but have an illusion that they should be a mother and daughter. Thinking like this, his mood was a little complicated. This time he was not jealous or anything, but felt that people were different after all. Concubine Duan was King Huang's biological mother, but her attitude towards her daughter was not even as good as that of the queen. At least the queen was willing to pretend on the surface. And the abdicated former queen of Dongling really had the attitude that a mother should have. Even if Qing Huang was not her biological daughter, her feelings for Qing Huang were just transference, but the more so, the more it proved how strong her feelings for her biological daughter were, so strong that she was willing to place these feelings on a woman who had no blood relationship with her. The emperor sighed lightly, it was good this way. Qing Huang didn't receive much warmth and love since she was a child. Now that she has a mother who truly loves her, it can be considered as a compensation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 303. Rong Yu followed the emperor into the palace, and Rongzhan, Xian Yuanyao and Xiejin naturally followed. Nan 11 and Chu Qing Huang went to the bedroom to take a rest. The mother and daughter had not had a good chat for a long time. When they walked into the palace, Chu Qing Huang ordered someone to bring ice cubes, and Minjiao and Jinlan made tea for the two masters. After tea was served, he took the guests out and left without interrupting the conversation between the master and the distinguished guest. Looking at the face of the girl in front of her who was completely different from Nuaniar, Nan 11 smiled and said, "How is it? Can you still get used to it?" Chu Ching Huang nodded, "It's good, mother, don't worry." Nan 11 hummed and said warmly, "I see that His Majesty the Emperor is not a bad person. Originally, your brother meant that if they treat you badly, they would kill Ziki and give it to you. Now it seems that he should no need." Chu Ching Huang nodded, "This emperor is indeed good, but looking at the Ziki royal family, he is still a good person. As the king of a country, he is a good emperor if he can truly think about the people. There has never been a queen in the history of Ziki. Even though the emperor was unable to do what he wanted, he could see Chu King Huang's courage. He was willing to give up several sons and decided to make his daughter the heir. It also required a lot of courage and courage. From these 2 points, the emperor is indeed admirable." "Do you need help?" Nan 11 asked. "You are our daughter, any request you make is reasonable, don't feel embarrassed." Chu Ching Huang laughed, "Don't think too much, mother. I don't feel embarrassed, but I really don't need to." Holding the teacup in her hand, she was silent for a moment. "Before, I just wanted to seize the throne for fun, without thinking too much. Later I found that His Majesty the Emperor really thought about the country, but he was incompetent about many things. You can use my hands to reorganize it. Being an emperor is different from being a prince. There are many things to worry about. If you are planning for the long term, many things must be done by yourself. You cannot rely too much on external forces, otherwise it will be difficult. Convince the public." When Nan 11 heard these words, she couldn't help but think of the years when Rong Yu was in power. They are really similar as father and daughter. To act decisively and resolutely, you must also be admired from the bottom of your heart, and must be feared and convinced at the same time. In this way, ministers can obey orders willingly and be scrupulous in doing things and not dare to mess around. Nan 11 nodded slowly, "As long as you know it well. Once you have a goal, do your best and don't worry about anything. The power of Ziki will not pose any threat to Dongling. The most important thing is that as an emperor, you have to deal with it. I am responsible for the people of the world, and let the people of Ziki see that a woman as emperor can also bring blessings to them, and she will do better than the previous male emperors." Chu Ching Huang smiled and said, "Mother is mighty." Nan 11 glared at her, "You have never said these words to please people before." One moment and another, Chu Ching Huang said, "When your daughter grows up, she must learn to change." Nan 11 turned around and looked, "Where's Fuekang?" As soon as he finished speaking, Fuekang stepped out from the corner and knelt down on one knee, "Master's wife." Nan 11 was silent for a while, with a subtle expression, "I heard that you two eat and live together every day, and sleep in the same bed at night." Fuekang's nerves tightened and he lowered his head and did not dare to speak. Even if he was unsophisticated, he still knew the rules about men and women not being intimate with each other. Moreover, for a shadow guard to sleep in his master's bed without a name or status, it was a capital crime that could be called treason. To put it bluntly, this incident was also his fault. Fortunately, Nan 11 had no intention of embarrassing him. Regardless of whether something should be done or not, the shadow guard was a person who obeyed his master's orders. If his master agreed, then the responsibility did not lie with him. At this time, it would be a bit suspicious to raise troops to question others. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 304. When Rong Yu entered the palace, it was already evening and it was getting dark. He talked to the emperor about some business and then stayed in the palace for dinner. Nan 11 ate with Qing Huang. After dinner, the mother and daughter went to the garden together. When Rong Yu came back from the palace, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse, and it was close to midnight. This day passed like this. Tonight, the people gathered in the princess's mansion were all heavyweights. Although Chu Qinghuang's throne did not require much help from her father and brother, the strong backing behind her determined that her road to becoming an emperor would be extremely smooth. On July 12, the princess's birthday banquet was held, and ministers above the third rank could enter the palace to attend the banquet. The 4 princes who had been trapped in the palace for several days were finally able to leave the prince's residence and breathe a breath of air freely. The atmosphere in the palace banquet garden was lively and the banquet was grand. 2 more chairs were set up on the high main platform. Rong Yu and Nan 11 sat side by side on the 2 chairs on the left side of the imperial desk. His Majesty the Emperor and the Empress sat on the right side. The civil and military officials of Ziki finally collectively witnessed the style of the former regent and the Empress of Dongling, who were famous all over the world. The couple may be 100 years old in total, but they still look stunning. God has given them too many favors. If they were young people, they would definitely be called God's favorites. Even if the most glorious period has passed, the prosperity they created is still continuing, witnessing the great achievements of these 2 people that people can't help but admire. Today, taking advantage of the birthday of the eldest princess, it is actually celebrating the friendly relationship between Ziki and Dongling. In addition to being grand, the banquet is also particularly noisy and relaxed. On the long row of seats on the left are Dongling envoys, Ziki princes, and ministers, and on the right are the female relatives headed by concubine Duan, concubine Xian, and the eldest princess, and concubine Ling and concubine Xian are also among them. The red carpet in the middle formed a long and wide stage, and the court dancers entered one after another, dancing with their waists bent. The atmosphere gradually became more and more lively. The Emperor of Ziki took the initiative to raise his glass to drink with Rong Yu, while the Queen smiled and talked to Nan 11, her words and expressions were warm and sincere, and there was no trace of abnormal emotions. The ministers of Ziki and the envoys of Dongling also had a good chat. The whole banquet looked very noisy and happy, and it was a scene of prosperity and prosperity. However, after 3 rounds of wine, the Princess Xian, who was sitting next to Chu Qinghuang, suddenly vomited and quickly covered her mouth with a handkerchief in a hurry. "Princess, what's wrong with you?" The maidservant's face changed, and she quickly approached to ask, "Princess." Princess Xian's face was pale, and she frowned. After a long while, she slowly shook her head, "Nothing." Chu Qinghuang tilted her head to look at her, her eyes thoughtful, "Is my second sister-in-law ill?" Princess Xian shook her head and smiled, "I'm fine, 7th sister, don't worry." Prince Xian was trapped in the palace for several days. Chu Qinghuang has been selected as the crown prince. The enthronement ceremony will be held next month. It is rare that she can still maintain a perfect smile in such an occasion, which shows that she has good self-control. Chu Qinghuang heard her say that she was fine, so she didn't ask any more questions. However, after a while, Princess Xian vomited again. This time the reaction was a little too strong. In a panic, she directly knocked over the teacup on the tea table in front of her, causing a lot of commotion. The dancers stopped dancing at the same time and turned to look at the seats of the female relatives. This change was too sudden. The Emperor and the Queen didn't pay much attention to it. After the dancers stopped, the people in the main seat naturally noticed the abnormality here and turned to look at Princess Xian. The Emperor's face suddenly darkened. "What's going on? Are there any rules for distinguished guests here?" Princess Xian's face turned pale, and she covered her mouth tightly with a handkerchief. She was about to stand up and kneel down, but she heard the Queen suddenly say, "Princess Xian, Are you feeling unwell? Princess Xian looked up at her and nodded gently, yes. As soon as she agreed, she quickly said, I deserve to die. I disturbed my father and mother's interest and frightened the distinguished guests. I dash. Princess Xian didn't mean it. Nan 11 looked at Princess Xian's pale face and smiled faintly, if I'm right, the princess should be pregnant. What? The ministers were shocked. Princess Xian is pregnant? This is great news. Quick. Call the imperial physician, the queen ordered without delay, and could hardly suppress her excitement. Come here, help Princess Xian to the attic to rest. You all should serve her carefully, and there must be no mistakes. Yes. The maids in Prince Xian's mansion hurriedly helped Princess Xian down carefully. The displeasure caused by the original loss of etiquette also dissipated because of the possible happy event, and the emperor's expression seemed to be relaxed. If she was really pregnant, he would have his first grandson, and he would be happy. It would be great if she was really pregnant. Someone at the table said, this is the emperor's first grandson. Maybe he will have a boy and give birth to the eldest grandson of the royal family. The speaker may not know it, but the listener has intention. Isn't this just reminding the emperor that Prince Xian is the legitimate son of the royal family, and his son is the eldest grandson? If Princess Xian is really pregnant with a royal child at this time, wouldn't it be a talisman to add to her already legitimate status? Will the emperor change his mind and make Prince Xian the crown prince? Ziki has been blessed with good things recently. Nan 11's face was still gentle, with a faint smile. First, there were rumors that the princess was the emperor of heaven, the reincarnation of a goddess, and now she has formed an alliance with Dongling, which indicates that Ziki is about to prosper, and then there is another royal happy event. It seems that even the heavens agree that the princess is the heir, so the auspicious signs from heaven are blessing Ziki. The words fell slowly, without any worldly air, as gentle as a bodhisattva who saves all living beings. The ministers of Ziki who were secretly thinking about it were speechless. Just at this moment, a person came in quickly and knelt on one knee. Your Majesty, the Princess of Shu, Yeqing Cheng, and her husband, Mr. Yun, came together, saying that they were sending birthday gifts to the princess. The Princess of Shu? Everyone looked at each other. The emperor was surprised. Where is he? Outside the inner city gate. How can you let the distinguished guest wait outside the gate? The emperor shouted angrily. Why don't you invite him over? Yes, the guards received the order. I will go right away. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 305. The ministers of Ziki looked at each other in bewilderment. Is Ziki really blessed by God this year? Why are all the big shots coming to Ziki? There was no such grand occasion in previous years. Everyone turned to look at Chu Qinghuang. And they all came for the princess. If they hadn't seen the princess grow from a toddler to a powerful warrior, with a violent temper until she was 15 years old, they would have suspected that the princess was the long-lost daughter of the Queen of Dongling. The dancers were interrupted by Princess Xian before they finished their dance. They were forced to stop and quickly retreated. After a while, a pair of outstanding men and women slowly walked in. Well, they were about the same age as Rongyu and Nan 11, stunning and outstanding, and both had the innate demeanor of high-ranking people. Behind the two of them were 12 tall and slender men dressed as guards. Each of them carried a large mahogany box, which was heavy and should have contained a lot of good things. Your Majesty. Yeqing Cheng walked to the red carpet and stood still, bowing slightly, elegant and noble. I am Yeqing Cheng, and the one next to me is my husband Yun Ting. The two of us were traveling and passing through Ziki. I heard that today is the birthday of your country's eldest princess, so I came here to join in the fun. I hope the eldest princess will accept this small gift. The humble words revealed several meanings. First, they were just passing by here for sightseeing, not coming to Ziki on purpose, so it was normal that Ziki did not get their news in advance. Second, although they did not intend to pass by here, they were willing to come here specially for the eldest princess' birthday and give a gift that was obviously valuable. Third, the ministers couldn't help but mutter in their hearts, is the throne worthless these days? Why did they all abdicate early to travel as if they had seen through the world? The Queen of Dongling and the Regent were known to the world for their wisdom and bravery, but they abdicated to their sons more than 10 years ago and then went to travel. Yet Cheng of Shu Kingdom risked the world's disapproval and finally snatched her father's throne into her own hands. However, she was the empress for only a few months before she risked the world's disapproval again and passed the throne to her adopted son, and went to travel with Yunting. Although there are many wonders in the world, being able to travel around is also a great thing in life. After all, traveling around the world also requires confidence, enough silver support, protection from masters, and enough time, so that you can pay for the huge expenses along the way, ensure your personal safety, and have fun. But is traveling really happier than sitting on the throne and pointing out the country and holding the power of life and death? They really don't understand the thoughts of these emperors and nobles. These 6 boxes of gifts, 1 box of gold, 1 box of silver, 1 box of silk, 1 box of jewelry, 1 box of antiques, calligraphy and paintings, and 1 box of 4 treasures of the study. Yet Cheng pointed to the boxes behind him, except for the 2 boxes of gold and silver, the others are carefully selected by me. I hope Her Royal Highness the Princess will accept them. The ministers of Ziki were shocked. Such a heavy gift, are you sure you just come here to join in the fun while sightseeing? Chu Qinghuang stood up and calmly returned the gift. Thank you, Her Royal Highness the Princess of Shu, and thank you, Prince Consort Yun. Yet Cheng raised her eyes, and her clear eyes lingered on Chu Qinghuang's face for a moment. I heard that Her Majesty the Queen of Dongling just recognized the princess as her daughter. What a coincidence, I have some friendship with Her Majesty. If Her Royal Highness the Princess doesn't mind, you can call me Aunt. The ministers of Ziki were surprised. Another person who came to claim a relative? This blatant relationship, do you really take the princess's biological mother seriously? Concubine Duan, who was sitting among the concubines, had a very stiff expression. The gazes from all directions were like sharp knives, stabbing her in the heart. Sister Concubine Duan is so lucky. Concubine Xian smiled and said with a good temper, she gave birth to a princess who is superior to all the princes. The emperor did not hesitate to break the rules left by the ancestors to make her the heir. Now the abdicated empresses of Dongling and Shu are vying to recognize her. Although this situation is hard to understand, I am afraid that the saying that the eldest princess is the emperor's phoenix is really going to come true. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 306. Concubine Duan clutched the teacup, her brows so gloomy that she seemed to be dripping with ink. But it's strange to say Concubine Xian was afraid that Concubine Duan was not in a bad mood, so she took a sip of tea and said leisurely, Qinghuang seems to have suddenly woken up this year. Not only has his violent temper become much more restrained than before, but he no longer commits adultery. Crazy, and suddenly gained courage. After a slight pause in her tone, Concubine Xian said thoughtfully, it seems that since she divorced Feng Jinzi, she has completely changed and become impressive. Concubine Duan gritted her teeth and her eyes fell on the pattern of the teacup. Her eyes were so gloomy that she wanted to cut a hole in it. She made meritorious deeds one after another and eliminated her opponents without mercy. I originally thought she just had a bad temper and took the opportunity to vent, but now that I think about it, I suddenly realized. Concubine Xian sighed, with a little more emotion in her tone. Admired, how can this be an impulsive temper? It's obviously because of his bad temper that he eliminated his powerful enemies step by step, and moved towards the goal of becoming the crown prince step by step without everyone being prepared. After saying that, he turned his head and glanced at Concubine Duan. Sister Concubine Duan, do you think my analysis is correct? Concubine Duan gave her a cold look and said nothing. Princess Ye is so polite. His Majesty the Emperor smiled brightly, and the joy could be heard in his tone. It's a joy to have you two here. How can I let you spend so much money? You're welcome, Ye Cheng said, this is for Qing Huang. The emperor choked, then smiled, and said, Qing Huang. Qing Huang hummed and ordered people to accept all the gold and silver gifts and put them into the national treasury. Send it to the treasury. Ye Cheng looked at her in surprise. This is a meeting gift that I carefully selected to give to your little niece. It is not for the Ziki royal family, but for yourself. Ah, this. The expressions of the Ziki ministers were subtle. The eldest princess of Shu is too straightforward. Now that the national treasury is not very rich, what will happen if these gifts are added to the national treasury? Did she deliberately want to provoke a confrontation between the royal family and the eldest princess? It doesn't matter, Qing Huang said calmly, I will become the next queen of Ziki. My things belong to my father and the treasury of Ziki, regardless of public or private matters. After saying that, he nodded his thanks again. Thank you, Aunt Qing Cheng. The ministers of Ziki had different expressions. The eldest princess is too arrogant to become the next queen? How could she become the queen even if she hadn't even written her horoscope yet? Historically, princes who were established as princes would not dare to say this in front of the emperor. The eldest princess really did not want to hide her ambitions at all. Ye Cheng seemed to be pleased by Qing Huang's title, and waved his hands happily. You're welcome, this is what I should do. The little niece is so domineering. No wonder Rong Yu and Nan 11 both rushed to recognize their daughter. The child seemed to have a really pleasant personality, not weak and hypocritical at all, and very sassy. Elder Princess and Prince Consort Yun, please take a seat, the emperor greeted quickly. Come, please quickly set up a seat for these two distinguished guests. Chen Hai agreed, but was a little embarrassed. Your Majesty, where should this table be located? His Majesty the Emperor looked left and right, and was about to speak when he heard Ye Cheng say, I'll just sit with my niece. You don't have to worry too much about courtesy. Anyway, she has abdicated the throne now, and she doesn't care about honor or not. Taking the opportunity to establish a good relationship with the niece she just recognized is the most important thing. Princess Xian, who was next door to Qing Huang, left temporarily due to physical discomfort, and a seat just became available, so Ye Cheng walked over and sat down. The palace attendants respectfully stepped forward, removed all the utensils, wine, and dishes used by Princess Xian, replaced Ye Cheng with a new set of wine cups and utensils, and quickly placed 4 brand new dishes on the table. Yunting went to the opposite side. He originally wanted to find a place to sit down, but Xian Yuanyao waved to him, Master Yun, come and sit here. Yunting paused slightly and turned to look at where he was. The men's row was led by distinguished guests, with Xian Yuanyao, Xiejin, and Rong Zhan sitting at the top. Below them were the princes of Ziki, princes, and important ministers. There was no extra space. With quick eyesight and quick hands, the palace man quickly added a seat between Xian Yuanyao and Rong Zhan, so Rong Zhan made way to one side. All the people sitting under Rong Zhan had to move a little. For a moment, they only saw Ziki. The ministers moved their seats one after another, just to make room for the distinguished guests from Shu. To all this, Rong Yu, who was sitting in the main seat, did not react at all. He held the wine cup in one hand and his expression was calm and calm. Nan 11 watched with a smile on her face, and waited for Ye Ching Cheng to sit down before she spoke slowly. How are you doing with Ching Cheng? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 307. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. Everything is fine with Yunting and I. Ye Ching Cheng nodded slightly. We only heard about the news from the regent and His Majesty, so we decided to come over to join in the fun. After arriving in Ziki, we heard some rumors, saying Qing Huang is the reincarnation of a goddess or something. I'm very happy. In the past, there were always some vulgar and arrogant people who deliberately suppressed women through etiquette and rules, criticizing women as inferior to men, as if women should crawl at the feet of men. Task, I don't believe this evil. As soon as these words came out, the huge palace banquet was as silent as snow. The faces of the ministers of Ziki changed one after another, and they couldn't help but look at the eldest princess from Shu. It seems that more than 10 or 20 years ago, there were often rumors in the Shu kingdom that the eldest princess was deviant and unruly, and many people were dissatisfied with it. However, in the end, all those who were dissatisfied with her seemed to have no good ending. She openly supported Chu Qing Huang today, which none of them expected. There are too few brave and resourceful women in the world. It's rare to meet one, so I, the princess, naturally want to come and see them. Ye Ching Cheng picked up the wine cup from the tea table and saluted the emperor from a distance. This glass of wine is for the emperor. For this princess sincerely admires the emperor's decision to appoint King Huang's niece as his crown prince despite all opinions. I deeply believe that the emperor's move is extremely wise and will definitely make Ziki prosperous. Chu Tianling, Chu Tianqiu, Chu Tianyan, and Chu Tianzheng, who were sitting on the men's table, had sinister eyes and almost wanted to drive out this distinguished guest who had come from afar. What distinguished guest? She is simply a witch who does not respect ethics, shocks the world, and brings disaster to the country and the people. What does Ziki's matter have to do with her? Who wants her to join in the fun? I just don't know what it means. The emperor picked up the wine cup and was about to take a sip when he suddenly heard a cold voice. It is true that my concubine's daughter is excellent, with strong military power and unparalleled strategy. It is human nature for outsiders to admire her, but none of them recognize their youth. Huang is an adopted daughter, which means she is recognized as a niece. Suddenly, she has so many relatives, but no one even says hello to me. Concubine Duan stood up and saluted the emperor. Her tone seemed to be a bit dissatisfied. Your Majesty, does this mother, my concubine, have no qualifications to speak? The queen who abdicated in Dongling wants to recognize Qing Huang as her daughter, and the queen who abdicated in Shu wants to recognize Qing Huang as her niece. They all come to recognize her. Have you asked her about her biological mother's wishes? Concubine Duan's face was sullen, her expression obviously worried. The emperor's gesture of raising the glass froze. Long Yan's face sank slightly, and he turned to look at Concubine Duan. I agree to this matter, and Qing Huang also agrees. Concubine Duan, what do you think? Concubine Duan's eyes narrowed suddenly and she looked at the emperor in disbelief, as if looking at a stranger. So in the emperor's heart, my mother is just a decoration. Of course you are not a decoration, the emperor said calmly. Didn't I ask you to come over to attend King Huang's birthday banquet today? The implication was very clear. If it were not for Qing Huang's sake, given her current situation of falling out of favor, even if she had not been demoted to a concubine, whether she would be qualified to attend such a palace banquet would depend on the emperor's mood. Concubine Duan's face was pale, as if she had been greatly stimulated. Now any outsider can come and snatch my concubine's daughter. What does robbery mean? Rong Zhan frowned. Are all Ziki's concubines so unruly? The expressions of the ministers changed. Concubine Duan, the emperor's face darkened. If you feel uncomfortable, go back and rest first. Concubine Duan asked with questioning eyes. I just want an answer. Why can't the emperor directly answer my question? An angry look appeared on the emperor's face. Concubine Duan. Is this concubine Duan of Ziki, the biological mother of King Huang's niece? Yeching Cheng said casually, raising the corners of his lips with a slightly less obvious arc. Before I decided to recognize Qing Huang, my niece, I also inquired about you a little. I know who you are, and of course I know your relationship with Qing Huang. Concubine Duan stood with her back straight, her face as cold as frost. Originally, according to my status as the princess, I don't bother to talk to you at all, but for the sake of Qing Huang niece, I am willing to waste a few words. Yeching Cheng sneered, don't talk about us outsiders, just ask Ziki here. Ministers, have you ever regarded Qing Huang as your daughter? The ministers were silent. Whoever dares to talk too much at this time is seeking death. Concubine Duan has lost power, and even the Ling family, which has been prominent for 20 years, has collapsed. Who dares to speak for Concubine Duan at this time? Moreover, he would risk offending distinguished guests from Dongling and Shu at the same time. A mother is kind and a daughter is filial. If the mother is unkind, how can she still expect her daughter to be stupid and filial? Yeching Cheng said coldly, this princess has always hated such hypocritical and cold-blooded people. She is a disgusting thing. How dare she rely on her mother here? She has a high-sounding status, but she doesn't go back and look in the mirror to see if she is worthy of being a mother. At the end of the speech, he was very serious and showed no mercy. Not to mention Concubine Duan's face was stiff and she couldn't get off the stage. Even the emperor was made to feel hot at her words. Although Yeching Cheng was scolding Concubine Duan, he, the emperor, could not escape her involvement. Concubine Duan had been indifferent to Qing Huang for more than 10 years, and he, the father, was also responsible. Princess Yecheng's words are too much. Chu Tianzheng stood up, angrily and dissatisfied. Everyone in the world has parents. The mother-in-law is the biological mother of the seventh sister. No matter what their relationship is, it cannot change the fact that she was pregnant in 10 months. Others have no right to comment on their mother-daughter relationship. Yeching Cheng frowned, looking unhappy. Who are you? How dare you shout in front of me like that? Nan 11, who was sitting in the main seat, watched this scene quietly. The gentle smile on the corner of her lips slowly disappeared. Her eyes passed from Concubine Duan's face and looked at Chu Tianzheng, who was full of anger. After a moment of silence, she smiled faintly and said, is this the Prince of Ziki? The emperor was about to get angry, but when he heard this, his expression paused and he nodded slowly. He is my fifth son, a useless one. I am sorry to make you laugh, Your Majesty. It doesn't matter. Nan 11 smiled lightly, not showing any temper. I always think that a man should convince others with his ability. This fifth prince looks very imposing and should have some ability. How about this? I also have a useless son, let them fight. What do you think? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 308. When this proposal came out, no matter whether it was Ziki or Dongling, no matter whether it was a man or a woman, they all fell silent. Chu Tianzheng froze on the spot. The useless son of the Queen of Dongling and the useless son of the Emperor of Ziki sparred? Why did they need to spar? I'm afraid that King Zhang could make their fifth prince's brain burst with one move. Today is the eldest princess' birthday, a rare good day. It's not appropriate to get angry, let alone bleed, Nan 11 said calmly, and a few words dispelled the emperor's anger. Rongzhan, stop sparring at the right time, remember not to hurt the fifth prince. Rongzhan stood up and bowed, don't worry, mother, I will never let the fifth prince get hurt. Without bleeding or getting hurt, he can still make this thing feel the pain of living a life worse than death. Rongzhan left the table and raised his hand to signal, fifth prince, please. Chu Tianzhen's face was pale, and he was in a dilemma. I. Why are you so shy, like a little girl? Rongzhan stretched out his hand and grabbed him by the back of the neck and carried him out. Dongling and Ziki have a friendly alliance, so let's have a friendly exchange. Don't worry, it's just a fight. Duanfei watched her son being taken away, and she hated him to the extreme, but she couldn't say a word. Coward. The emperor is a coward. Being controlled by Dongling and Shu, he doesn't have the responsibility of a king at all. Empress Duan is Qing Huang's mother. Nan 11 turned her head and said in a light voice, from a moral and logical point of view, we should have said hello to you. However, before coming here, I also heard that concubine Duan and Qing Huang and her daughter had some unpleasantness. Concubine Duan had repeatedly tried to marry Qing Huang to her nephew, who was extremely rebellious and repeatedly spoke wildly. Therefore, I think concubine Duan may not be qualified to be a mother. The air was slightly cold. The ministers were suddenly shocked. The abdicated queen of Dongling seemed to have protected the eldest princess in a way that exceeded the boundaries of the identity of adoptive mother. And as an adopted daughter who had just been recognized, why did she protect the eldest princess so much? And the eldest princess of Shu Kingdom was the same. Concubine Duan looked at the emperor without blinking, trying to see a little affection from his face, even if it was the guilt or self-blame of powerlessness, even if it was a little bit of guilty conscience, but the emperor frowned and looked cold, looking at her with cold disgust in his eyes. Where was the trace of affection in the past? Disgusted. Concubine Duan felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar, and her whole body was as cold as ice. Come here, the emperor said coldly. Concubine Duan is not feeling well, send her back to rest. Concubine Duan's face turned pale, and she stood at the table like a stone sculpture, staring at the emperor. She stood there for a long time, then slowly lowered her eyes, leaving the table with resentment and unwillingness and returning to the palace. The banquet was quiet for a long time. Rong Yu held the wine cup in his hand, and never said much. There was no special expression on his noble and cold face. He had a deep and unfathomable look, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. Concubine Duan and her son deserved to die. But he didn't need to do anything. Chu Tianzheng would let Rongzhan deal with him, and he would naturally teach him the lesson he deserved. As for concubine Duan, the regent of Dongling would naturally not bully a woman, but if Nan 11 and Yeqing Cheng took action, it would not be considered bullying. After all, they were all women. No one stipulated that the two abdicated empresses could not bully others by taking advantage of their power. Besides, 11er was Nuanuan's mother, and it was natural for a mother to protect her daughter. Besides, concubine Duan asked for it herself. As for the protagonist of this incident, everyone looked at Chu Qing Huang in silence, and saw that the princess was holding a teacup and drinking tea carelessly. She looked indifferent, calm, and unfathomable. Her calm demeanor and calm and cold demeanor were inexplicably similar to a certain regent. The ministers were shocked again when this thought flashed through their minds. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 309. Today is the birthday of the eldest princess of Ziki. It is an honor for Qing Huang and even more for Ziki to have the two queens come. The queen sitting next to the emperor then spoke, with a smile on her face and a graceful and elegant look. Dongling and Shu are both far away from Ziki, and the journey is long. Your Majesty can stay here for a few days, and we will treat you well. As he spoke, he picked up the wine cup from the tea table and said, drink with the distinguished guests. That's natural. Yeqing Cheng picked up the wine cup with a kind attitude. Yunting and I have nothing to do, and it happens to be hot right now. We have decided to stay in Ziki for the time being to witness the inauguration ceremony of King Huang's niece. It won't be too late for us to leave after the main hall is over. The queen's expression froze, and her smile cracked for a moment. The ceremony for establishing the crown prince will be next month. Does Princess Yechang mean that she will stay in Ziki for a month? Chu Tianqiu blurted out. After saying this, he seemed to realize that he had lost his temper and quickly asked to make up for it. It will not delay Princess Yechang. Big deal. It's not easy for me to recognize my niece. Naturally, the most important thing is the niece's incorporation ceremony. Yeching Cheng smiled faintly. Besides, didn't I just say that? My current homepage is to travel with my husband, and we can play anywhere. It's just for fun. It's hot now, so it's good for us to stay here and rest for a while. As he said that, he looked at the emperor and said, "The emperor will not welcome us." The emperor waved his hand quickly. What did Princess Ye say? I want it so much, how can I not welcome it? Establishing a good relationship with Dongling and Shu means that Ziki will have no worries from now on. With Qing Huang Thunder governing the country, Ziki will surely prosper and prosper. The emperor sketched the prosperous scene of Ziki in his mind, and his mood couldn't help but become better and better. Since Princess Ye has decided to stay, then Her Majesty the Queen and the Prince Regent. The emperor turned to look at Nan 11 and Rong Yu. Why don't you two stay in Ziki and wait until the Blue Phoenix canonization ceremony is over before leaving? The queen clutched the wine cup, her smile almost unbearable. That's exactly what I meant. Nan 11 smiled. King Huang's establishment of the crown prince is a big event. Naturally, we have to stay and join in the excitement. The queen took a deep breath and couldn't drink any more wine. Her mood instantly became extremely bad. She just asked casually, just to test when Yeching Chen would leave Ziki. If she and Nan 11 left early, there would still be room for reversal of the decision to appoint Chu Qing Huang as the crown prince. However, if they really decided to stay and participate in the ceremony, leave after the ceremony, and when everything is settled, how can she make the emperor change his mind? Before the crown prince is established, everything is possible. However, once the position of crown prince is established, unless Chu Qing Huang makes an unforgivable mistake, there will be no reason to abolish the crown prince. No. A coldness flashed across the queen's eyes. She would never let the throne fall into Chu Qing Huang's hands. Your Majesty, Nanny Gu from the Changchun Palace walked over quickly and knelt down with a joyful look on her face. After the imperial doctor checked her pulse, it turns out that Princess Xian is pregnant. Congratulations to the emperor, congratulations to the emperor. Congratulations to the queen, congratulations to the queen. A look of joy appeared on the queen's face. She turned to look at the emperor and said excitedly, Your Majesty, you have a legitimate grandson. According to the rules, the princess's happiness should not be announced in public, but today's situation is special, and the queen does not mind letting everyone know that Princess Xian is pregnant with the emperor's first legitimate grandson. Tianqiu was the legitimate son of the emperor and the most qualified candidate for heir apparent. Even if the emperor does not change his mind today, the child in Princess Xian's belly will be a source of confidence for Tianqiu. If there are any changes in the future, Tianqiu will definitely be the best choice for the crown prince. Congratulations to the emperor on the addition of a legitimate grandson. All the officials of the Western Qi dynasty congratulated. Congratulations to the queen, and congratulations to His Highness King Xian. Chu Tianqiu couldn't hide the joy on his face and looked at his father expectantly. It is indeed a happy event. The emperor smiled. The sky is vast. Chu Tianqiu quickly stood up and left the table, walked to the royal platform and knelt down. My son is here. Your wife is pregnant with a royal child. Starting from today, you will move back to the palace. You must take good care of her and make sure nothing goes wrong. My son obeys the order and thanks my father for his grace. Queen, the emperor ordered. Later, you will make arrangements for the reward from Prince Xian's mansion. Send 2 female officers who know medical skills there. They must take good care of Princess Xian. The queen nodded. I will make good arrangements, Your Majesty, please rest assured. The emperor hummed, "I feel more at ease when you do things." The queen's smile faltered. "Is he more at ease? Since you can rest assured, why can't you build a vast sky as a reserve?" The queen sneered, "Just saying it nicely. Ziki has been really blessed with good things recently." Ye Cheng said with a smile, "Could it be that he really responded to the saying the goddess came to the world to protect Ziki? I don't know which expert calculated this prophecy. It's so true. Accurate." The emperor was silent for a moment. Accurate calculation? Thinking of the queen mother who spread these rumors, the emperor felt a little unhappy. I am afraid that even the queen mother herself did not expect that she would accidentally do Qing Huang a big favor. However, the emperor soon put aside his displeasure. Never mind. No matter what the queen mother's original intention was, the current result is satisfactory anyway. With the blessing of the prophecy of the goddesses coming to the world, King Huang's future throne will only be more solid and stable. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 310. His Majesty the Emperor looked at Ye Cheng, who was sitting next to Qing Huang, and then at Nan 11 and Rong Yu, who were opposite him, and thought to himself, "It is now popular for emperors to abdicate early, shouldn't he also prepare early? The world is vast, with beautiful scenery and many strange mountains and wonders. He has never had the chance to leave the imperial capital in his life. Should he give up his seat to Qing Huang earlier and go out to see the mountains and rivers outside?" However, the couple Ye Cheng and Yunting have a deep relationship, which has been tempered through hardships. Rong Yu and Nan 11 are a couple admired by everyone in the world. Their power spreads all over the world. Even if they abdicate, they can still call the shots and control all forces. Rong Yu is very powerful and is protected no matter where he goes. Wife's ability. What about him? The emperor thought that when he was young, he often practiced martial arts to keep fit, but these years had been completely neglected. He must bring some guards when he went out to play. Besides, everyone else was in pairs, so did he want to go alone? Of course not. The emperor turned to look at the queen, and then his eyes fell on his concubines. The queen was definitely not the best candidate. He didn't make Tianqiu his wife, so the queen was afraid that she might hate him, and she would be worried even if he took her out. Concubine Duan is definitely not good either. The emperor had lost all patience with concubine Duan and had no interest in taking her out to play together. Concubine Xian? The emperor looked at concubine Xian, who was eating slowly at the table. He looked at her quietly and found that concubine Xian was a quiet and beautiful woman. She had stayed in the palace for many years and had never really fought for favor or given birth to a child. Half a woman, apart from the occasional sharp tongue and occasionally adding insult to injury, she doesn't seem to have any other shortcomings. The life was too boring. Well, just her. Go out for a walk while you are young, well, not too young. I should say that while you still have energy, go see the beautiful scenery outside, increase your knowledge as the king of a country, and live the rest of your life in a leisurely way. Chic. Concubine Xian, who was sitting at the table and drinking tea in silence, felt a little bored after concubine Duan left. She drank tea alone and enjoyed the delicacies on the table. Anyway, everything that happened in front of her had nothing to do with her, and she had no interest in caring about it. However, as she ate, she felt something was wrong. Slowly raising her head, concubine Xian looked in the direction of the emperor as if by mistake. Unexpectedly, she met a pair of burning and thoughtful eyes. She was startled and then frowned. Why is the emperor looking at her like this? The queen's daughter-in-law is happy, but it's not her who is happy. There will be no legitimate children or grandchildren in her belly. What was even more shocking was that the emperor actually smiled at her. Concubine Xian's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly lowered her head to avoid the emperor's gaze, but she couldn't help but murmur in her heart, "What is the emperor's plan?" Her eyes looked so gentle and kind, concubine Xian shuddered. It was scary. "What's wrong with Sister Xianfei?" A concubine next to her noticed something strange and asked in a low voice. "Nothing." The atmosphere at the palace banquet was a little unpleasant because of the quarrel between concubine Duan and her son. This unpleasantness was diluted by the fact that Princess Xian was happy. During the banquet, the emperor toasted, the guests and hosts rejoiced, and the atmosphere soon became noisy again. It's just that unlike the joy in the palace banquet garden, Chu Tianzheng was really having a hard time in a secluded and deserted garden in the imperial garden. Whoosh! 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 Like a strong wind blowing away fallen leaves, the thin branches hit someone's back with fierce force. Chu Tianzheng kept howling and tried to escape. His face had already turned pale, and his face was covered with sweat. His evasive posture was particularly awkward. "Get away! Don't come here again! Get away! Get away! Get out of here!" Rongzhan held the branch in his hand and walked towards him slowly. "Is the Prince of Ziki so ungraceful? We are obviously competing with each other, but you can't afford to lose, and you still shout hysterically for me to get out. What if I? Let me tell you, Your Majesty, that the fifth prince has been shouting unreasonably and insulting me. I wonder if the emperor will just let you, an unfilial and rebellious son, be beaten to death with a stick?" Chu Tianzheng hugged a tree in the imperial garden and turned around unconsciously, trying to stay away from Rongzhan, a madman who took the opportunity to avenge his personal revenge. I know what you are thinking in your heart. Aren't you just attracted by it? Did you marry Chu Qinghuang? Tell me. I am willing to let my mother-in-law betroth her to you, but you must promise to take her far away and never set foot in the Ziki imperial city again." Snap! Ah! The branches rose up in the air, piercing the air and flinging them mercilessly on the body that kept dodging. Chu Tianzheng screamed, his hand holding the tree trunk loosened, and he staggered to the ground. In an instant, the pain made his eyes black. "Oh!" Rongzhan walked over, knelt down beside him, and lifted his chin with a branch. "A man should behave like a man. Don't just yell like this after a little pain. There is no grace at all. I think back then, the king, I'm much younger than you are now, I was beaten worse than you by your father, and I didn't yell like you. I'm really worthless." Chu Tianzheng looked at him bitterly. "Is this how you dongling people bully others? Bullying others with power?" Rongzhan clicked his tongue and shook his head. "You really guessed wrong. What we at Dongling disdain most is bullying others with power, especially bullying a coward like you." He sneered. "You are neither good at literature nor martial arts, you are stupid and timid, yet you dare to covet the throne? Do you really think that anyone can become the emperor? I might as well tell you, not to mention that you can't become the emperor, even if you are lucky enough to become the emperor. Do you believe that if you ascend the throne today, tomorrow I can lead my cavalry to trample through the mountains and rivers of Ziki and make you roll off the throne and become a slave of a conquered country who will be infamous for thousands of years?